Okie dokie then. So, preview time. Let's go ahead and preview the 8 games for tomorrow. 8. It's not bad. It's just that this little sucker here is on in the morning. Why is there a game on tomorrow morning in Toronto? Why is it on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday? If that turns out to be a typo, although I saw it on both TSN and the NHL app, so I don't think so, but that's a weird time, isn't it? Did everybody get New Year's week off in Toronto? Is that a thing? Did Doug Ford bring something in where you just get that week off? All right. Well, he hates Toronto, so I don't think he'd do it just for Toronto. Maybe the rest of the province, then Toronto has to work overtime for the rest of the province. Anyways, first up, Minnesota and Toronto. So I'm going to start with this one because this is your matinee game. And it should be interesting because Minnesota comes in 18-17-3. They've backed their way out of the playoffs. They're trying to dig their way out of that hole. And they're in against a Toronto Maple Leafs team that has no problem helping to heap some dirt on that for the Minnesota Wild. And it's a Toronto team made up of a lot of pretty darn excellent players having an amazing season, and yet they're 10 points behind first in their division because they're in the same division as the Tampa Bay Lightning. But tomorrow night, if Tampa lost in regulation and Toronto won, Toronto will be within 8 points. It's not going to happen, but, hey. I have to stoke that kind of a hope during these previews, right? Anyways, Minnesota. Granlund leads the way in scoring with 11 goals, 26 assists. Parise's next with 17 goals, 16 assists. Ryan Suter, 4 goals, 23 assists. Stahl, 13 goals, 12 assists. Koivu, 5 goals, 18 assists. Dumba, 12 goals, 10 assists. Zucker, 10 goals, 10 assists. Niederreiter, 7 goals, 12 assists. Spurgeon, 4 goals, 15 assists. And Charlie Coyle with 6 goals, 12 assists rounds out the top 10. On the Toronto side of things, Mitch Marner, 13 goals, 40 assists. Not eligible for the All-Star game. Weird. Tavares, 26 goals, 18 assists. Riley, 13 goals, 31 assists. Matthews, 19 goals, 16 assists. Kapanen, 14 goals, 11 assists. Kadri, 9 goals, 16 assists. Gardner, 2 goals, 21 assists. Marlowe, 10 goals, 10 assists. Janssen, 8 goals, 9 assists. And Zach Hyman rounds out the top 10 with 7 goals and 8 assists for the Toronto Maple Leafs. On the goaltending side of things, I don't think anything is confirmed yet. Okay, so 2 goaltenders have been confirmed for tomorrow's games, including one for Toronto, which shouldn't surprise anybody. On the Minnesota side of things, Stalock's 5-3 with a 2.6 goals against, 903 save percentage. I expect Dubnyk in this one. Dubnyk, the All-Star, 13-14-3, 2.62 goals against, 912 save percentage. Garrett Sparks will be your starter for the Leafs, 6-2-1, 3.00 goals against, 905 save percentage. There was some talk about Hutchinson playing this game. Not happening. Anderson, of course, still hurt. He's 29-1 with a 2.5 goals against, 923 save percentage. In their last 10, the Minnesota Wild are 3-6-1. They lost their last game. On the road, Minnesota's 8-10 versus the East. Minnesota's 4-6-1, and they are right now 6 points out of the playoffs. On the Toronto side of things, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They lost their last game. At home, they're 12-6-1 versus the West. They're an impressive 11-3. They are second in the division. They're 6 points up on Boston, and of course, as I said, 10 points behind Tampa. So for me, this is a game that heavily favors the Leafs. I can't phrase it any other way. It heavily favors the Leafs. It can go the other way because there's parity, but the parity in the league this year doesn't seem to be as strong as it was last year. Calgary, 25-12-4 now. That's an impressive record for the Calgary Flames, and they're coming in against the Boston Bruins, 22-14-4, who are coming off of their Winter Classic victory over the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, for me, anyways, it's hard not to take the Flames in this game. It is hard not to look at this game and say, well, the Flames are going to win it. Goudreau leads the way in scoring with 22 goals, 37 assists. Monahan, 22 goals, 28 assists. Lindholm, 19 goals, 28 assists. Tkachuk, 18 goals, 29 assists. Giordano, 6 goals, 32 assists. Backlund, 8 goals, 12 assists. Hanifin, 3 goals, 16 assists. Jankowski, 6 goals, 10 assists. Brody, 4 goals, 11 assists. And Sam Bennett with 6 goals and 7 assists to round out the scoring for the Calgary Flames. On the Boston side of things, Pasternak, 24 goals, 26 assists to lead the team. Marchand, 13 goals, 29 assists. Bergeron, 13 goals, 20 assists. Krejci, 7 goals, 24 assists. Krug, 4 goals, 20 assists. Excellent season for Torrey Krug so far. DeBrusk, 11 goals, 3 assists. McAvoy, 1 goal, 10 assists. Grzelcyk, 1 goal, 10 assists as well. Corrali and Danton Heinen are both rounding out the top 10 with 4 goals and 6 assists. So the scoring for Boston is very top-heavy. It really is. And Calgary comes in as a team that can hurt you with 3 different lines. And potentially 4. So I like the odds for the Flames getting another win here. Riddick, 13, 4, and 3. 2.39 goals against, 920 save percentage. He, of course, being day-to-day. I expect Smith again. Smith's now 12, 8, and 1 with a 3.00 goals against, 889 save percentage. So his number barely moves up, but it goes from 888 to 889. So he's gradually getting better, and his win-loss record isn't bad. On the Boston side of things, I expect Jaro Halak. Rask is 10, 8, and 2 with a 2.63 goals against, 914 save percentage. And I listened to, I want to say that it was the Global announcer in Vancouver that said it, that was showing highlights from the Winter Classic and said Rask didn't have a very good game, but he won it. And I thought, he saved 36 out of 38. What do you mean he didn't have a very good game? Anyways, Halak's 12, 6, and 2 right now with a 2.28 goals against, 928 save percentage. I hear these things now that sports announcers say, and I think, I could not get away with that. I could not say that in a review or a preview and have people not just absolutely eviscerate me in comments. In their last 10, Calgary's 6-2 and 2. They won 2 in a row. On the road, they're 13 and 8 now. Versus the East, they're 7-3 and 2. They are first in the Pacific. They are 2 points ahead of Vegas, and I believe 1 point ahead of San Jose after San Jose won tonight. They're 54 points, 52. No, they're 3 points ahead of San Jose. San Jose would be at 51. Boston, 6-4 and 0. They won their last 2. At home, they're 13 and 5. So excellent home record for Boston versus the West. They're 8-4 and 3. They are third in the division, 6 points behind Toronto. They are tied with Buffalo. They have the tiebreaker on Buffalo, so Buffalo's the first wild card right now. And they're 1 point ahead of Montreal as well. And I didn't have space for it, but they're 2 points ahead of the Islanders. So there's a nice large logjam there. And Boston has to, come through and win a game like this, where the Flames are coming in and they're hot. The Flames, the win over Detroit on the heels of the win over San Jose, and I think the Flames are really getting on another one of those streaks. So it's going to be a great challenge for Boston at home with a team coming in like that. All right, next up, Vancouver. So the Vancouver Canucks now 20, 19, and 4 in against the 21, 14, and 5 Montreal Canadiens, who may very well have Carey Price in the lineup tomorrow night. Hasn't been confirmed yet, but it sounds like it's likely. Anyways, Vancouver coming off of a huge win in Ottawa, but let's be honest, it's a win in Ottawa. So they had a lead in Ottawa. They blew that lead in Ottawa. That's on the heels of a game where New Jersey kind of handed them their lunch. And, took their lunch. I don't know why I always say handed them the lunch. Here you go. Would you like your lunch? No, they took their lunch and the lunch money. And so the Canucks, it's kind of a redemption game tonight, but it's kind of too bad it had to go to overtime. Nice to see Pettersson get the hat trick, yes, but it's a shame it had to go to overtime. Now they go in against a Montreal team that's rested and should be rather confident in this game. Vancouver's leading scorer is, of course, Elias Pettersson. 22 goals and 20 assists. Horvat, 17 goals, 19 assists, not eligible for the All-Star game. Besser, 14 goals, 14 assists. Goldobin, 5 goals, 18 assists. Edler, 4 goals, 15 assists. Having a pretty solid season. Virtanen, 11 goals, 7 assists. Roussel, 4 goals, 13 assists. Eriksson, 7 goals, 9 assists. Granlund, 6 goals, 8 assists. And Ben Hutton, still up there at number 10 with 4 goals and 10 assists. They're a top-heavy team when it comes to scoring as well, but man, Pettersson sure makes it fun to watch, doesn't he? On the Montreal side, Domi, 14 goals, 23 assists. Drouin, 12 goals, 20 assists. Tatar, 14 goals, 17 assists. Jeff Petrie, 8 goals, 21 assists. Danault, 7 goals, 20 assists. Gallagher, 15 goals, 9 assists. Shaw with 11 goals, 13 assists. Lehkonen, 7 goals, 14 assists. Kotkaniemi, 4 goals, 14 assists. And Paul Byron rounds out the top 10 with 9 goals and 6 assists for the Montreal Canadiens. Goaltenders, there's been no confirmation on this. It'll be interesting, though, because Markstrom played tonight. It's a back-to-back. You could play McKenna. They could play McKenna. Now, the word today was that McKenna will play backup during the road trip, and then it's highly likely McKenna gets sent to Utica so that Demko goes back to Vancouver with the Canucks for their next home game. But you could play him here. You really could. Markstrom 17-10-3 now with a 2.81 goals against, 910 save percentage. McKenna's 1-4-1 with Ottawa, of course. 3.96 goals against, 897 save percentage. If Niemi plays, Niemi's 6-4-1 with a 4.01 goals against, 881 save percentage. Pay attention to the win-loss record. Try to avoid looking at the goals against or the save percentage. Price is 15-10-4 with a 2.84 goals against, 904 save percentage. And he's in the All-Star game, which will be a lightning rod for a lot of people with this one. Over their last 10, Vancouver's 6-3-1. They won their last game. On the road, they're 11-10-3 now. Versus the East, they're 8-8-2. And they are 1 point back of a playoff spot, but they've played 2 more games than the Anaheim Ducks they're chasing. The good news is the Ducks haven't been very good lately. So, as crazy as it sounds, and I'm still saying, and I'm not changing my mind on this, I still say Vancouver misses the playoffs. They're making it fun right now. They're making it fun to watch. Montreal, over their last 10, they're 6-4. They won their last game. At home, they're 10-7-2. Versus the West, they're 9-6. They're the number 2 wild card, 1 point behind Buffalo and Boston, of course, who are number 3 in the Atlantic, and they're 1 point ahead of the Islanders. So again, it's that big log jam right there, and it'll be interesting to see how that log jam gets worked out. Next up, Florida, 17-15-6, and looking to get hot, and they're in against Buffalo. So for the Buffalo Sabres, this is kind of a challenge. This is a team you should beat. You're at home. So this is kind of a put up or shut up kind of thing. Buffalo's gone from being one of the top teams to being a team that we look at and go, okay, it'll be Toronto and Buffalo in the first round. That could be fun. And now Buffalo's fallen into a wild card spot due to a tiebreaker with Boston. And now there has to be some concern about whether or not they're going to be in the playoffs at this stage of the game. So for Florida, who clearly haven't given up on getting a playoff spot, tomorrow night could be key to making that more of a conversation or falling right back out again. Huberdeau leads Florida in scoring with 10 goals, 34 assists. Barkov's next at 15 goals, 24 assists. Hoffman, 18 goals, 18 assists. Dadonov, 17 goals, 18 assists. Yandel, 6 goals, 26 assists. Vetrano, 10 goals, 6 assists. McCann, 7 goals, 9 assists. Matheson, 2 goals, 13 assists. Ekblad, 7 goals, 7 assists. And Vincent Trocheck, 3 goals, 11 assists to round out the top 10 scorers for the Florida Panthers. On the Buffalo side of things, Eichel, who's injured right now, of course, 15 goals, 34 assists. Skinner, 26 goals, 13 assists. Reinhart, 8 goals, 30 assists. Ristolainen, not Rasmussen, I don't know why I put that up there. It's Ristolainen. 4 goals, 21 assists for him. Dahlin, 4 goals, 16 assists. Pominville, 9 goals, 9 assists. Okposo, 6 goals, 10 assists. Sherry, 7 goals, 7 assists for him. Mittelstadt, 5 goals, 6 assists. And Evan Rodriguez, 2 goals, 9 assists to round out the top 10 scorers for the Buffalo Sabres. Odds are what happened is that while I'm writing everything up there, there's Detroit highlights going on. As I'm writing up Ristolainen, I write up Rasmussen because I see something going on with the Detroit Calgary game from earlier tonight. Likely what happened. It's the only explanation I have for that. Goaltenders. Luongo's been confirmed. He's 8-7-1 with a 3.19 goals against, 897 save percentage. That has not been going well. Reimer's 8-7-3 with a 3.17 goals against, 896 save percentage. So, not great numbers from either goaltender. They're kind of equal right now, which is kind of scary for Florida. On the Buffalo side, I kind of expect Hutton, even though Ullmark's kind of due for a start here. I'd put Ullmark in. Hutton's 13-12-3 with a 2.63 goals against, 917 save percentage. Ullmark 8-1-3 with a 2.71 goals against, 922 save percentage. Over their last 10, Florida's 6-4 with 2 wins in a row. On the road, they're 9-9-2, and versus the East, they're 14-9-5. So Florida does well against the East. They're 7 points out of the playoffs. If they can get a win, get within 5 or 6, But if they fall back and then they're at 9 out, there's that line there that about 9 points out of the playoffs and beyond, it's really tough to get back into it. On the Buffalo side, of course, they're 4-4-2. They've lost 3 in a row. At home, they're 12-5-3. Versus the East, they're 10-8-5. They are the number one wild card. They're tied with Boston, who are technically third on that tie in the division. They're 1 point ahead of Montreal and 2 points ahead of the Islanders. This is a make-or-break type game for Buffalo. They're at home, as I said, against a team that they should be able to beat, a Florida team that if they could jump on them early, pot a couple of goals, they could end up having a bit of a laugher here against Florida. But if Florida can come out, silence the crowd, make people nervous with that first goal, we might be in for a completely different storyline. That being said, I'm about due for changing boards. And then we'll come back with the second board for the other 4 games. Alrighty, next up on the board, Carolina and Philly. Here we go again with Carolina and Philly. Somebody's got to win. And last time around, I believe Carolina won this game. And we'll see if they can do it again. Carolina's now 16-17-5, whereas Philly 15-19-5. It's become a bit more of a pipe dream for Philly to make the playoffs. And at this stage of the game, you're better off if you're Chuck Fletcher to look at what you can sell, what you can get for what you can sell, and go full on with it. As far as I'm concerned, Philly should just go ahead and embrace the idea that they have to sell guys off and get extra draft picks and just do it. Do it now. Don't wait until February when, you potentially maybe the price gets driven down. I mean, last year at the trade deadline, you look at Vanek's a good example of a guy who might have been worth more if he'd been traded earlier in the season. Anyways, that being said, Carolina, who also were not that far from being at the stage of, well, we're going to have to kind of tear it down again. They did a fire sale over the summer, so I'm not sure how tearing it down would look. But anyways, their leading scorers, Aho, 15 goals, 24 assists. Saravinen, 8 goals, 21 assists. Williams, 7 goals, 13 assists. Svechnikov, 11 goals, 8 assists. Ferland, 11 goals, 6 assists. Slavin and Wallmark both have 3 goals and 10 assists for Carolina. Martinuk, 9 goals, 3 assists. Justin Falk, 2 goals, 10 assists. And Jordan Stahl, 5 goals and 6 assists to round out the top 10 scorers for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, on the Philadelphia side of things, Claude Giroux, 13 goals, 31 assists, leads the way by a mile. Voracek, 10 goals, 20 assists. Couturier, 14 goals, 14 assists. Konechny, 9 goals, 12 assists. Simmons, 11 goals, 6 assists. Gostisbehere, 5 goals, 11 assists. They had an article today where they talked about the 5 names that are most difficult to pronounce of guys who play right now. They had Teuvo Teravainen in there and Shane Gostisbehere. And they said that for announcers, they've got to understand Ghost is not actually in the name. And that's part of the reason why sometimes I just say Ghost. 5 goals, 11 assists for him. Lawton, 7 goals, 8 assists. Van Riemsdyk, 5 goals, 8 assists. Provorov and Haig both have 4 goals and 8 assists for the Philadelphia Flyers. Goaltenders, no confirmation on any goaltenders on this board, as of when I'm talking to you right now. Mrazek, 6-8-2, 2.59 goals against, 901 save percentage. I would not be surprised to see him play this game against the team that dumped him in the offseason. But McElhinney's been very solid. He's 8-5-1, 2.22 goals against, 924 save percentage. McElhinney is the reason why Scott Darling, that whole experiment is over. On the Philly side of things, I don't know. Do you go with Hart? He's 2-3, 2.78 goals against, 899 save percentage. Neuwirth's 1-3-1 with a 4.09 goals against, 865 save percentage. The fact that I'm just shrugging and saying, yeah, I don't know what you do with Philly's goaltending shows that even though they're on their 6th and 7th goaltenders overall, Stolarz is hurt, Elliott's hurt. I don't know. I don't know what you do. And when Elliott comes back, how do you fix this? Does Neuwirth become a guy who goes on waivers? Do you just send Hart to the minors when they're all healthy? Do you go with Stolarz and Elliott? What do you do? It's a lot. It's an uncomfortable conversation Philly's going to have, I would think, if they get healthy. Last 10, Carolina's 3-6-1. They won their last game. On the road, they're 6-10-1. Versus the East, they're 9-11-3, and they're 10 points out of the playoffs. 10. Youch. Philadelphia's 3-6-1 in their last 10 as well. They lost 4 in a row to get there. At home, they're 7-8-2, which is also an ouch, and against the East, they're at 8-11-3. they're both going to lose. According to these numbers, both teams are going to lose tomorrow. Magically, somewhere out of nowhere, Seattle's going to come in and win this game between Carolina and Philly. That's my prediction. Philly is 12 points out of the playoffs. Both teams are basically at that level where, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't help that the teams that are in the playoffs are playing well enough to keep pulling away. Slowly, but still pulling away at a rate that makes it much, much less likely that Philadelphia is going to have the miraculous second half they did last year. Last year, they had a very good second half and they made the playoffs. They're just, right now, it just to me looks like it's too much distance for them to cover. All right, next up, Chicago. 15-21-6 now after that outdoor game. They're in against the Islanders, who are 21-13-4. And your guess is as good as mine about which Chicago team shows up. The one that was on this really good hot streak going into that outdoor game, or if the outdoor game's going to take some wind out of their sails. They do have a challenge in front of them if they're going to try to make a playoff run, and they're in against an Islanders team that's playing the best hockey that I think an Islanders team's played in quite a while. Scoring-wise, Kane leads the Chicago Blackhawks, because of course he does. 22 goals and 28 assists. Taves, 16 goals, 20 assists. DeBrincat, 18 goals, 15 assists. Saad, 11 goals, 11 assists. Gustafsson, 8 goals, 14 assists. Strome, 9 goals, 10 assists. Anisimov, 7 goals, 11 assists. Cahoon, 5 goals, 11 assists. Duncan Keith, 16 assists for him. Still seeking that ever-elusive first goal of the year. Seabrook, 4 goals and 11 assists. He rounds out the top 10 for Chicago. On the Islanders side of things, Matthew Barzal, 10 goals, 26 assists. Bailey, 8 goals, 22 assists. Lee, 14 goals, 13 assists. Nelson, 13 goals, 12 assists. Filppula, 9 goals, 10 assists. Pulak, 3 goals, 15 assists. Eberle, 7 goals, 10 assists. Beauvillier, 11 goals, 4 assists. Cizikas, 10 goals and 5 assists for the Islanders. And then Komarov, 5 goals, 9 assists for the New York Islanders to round out the top 10 scorers. If I had to give an edge with scoring, I would give a slight edge to Chicago, but the Islanders are sneaky about it. They've got a number of guys who could get 20 goals this year, and it's kind of scoring by committee with the Islanders. Goaltending, I kind of expect Delia in this one because Ward played in the outdoor game. Delia is 3-0-0 with a 1.66 goals against, 957 save percentage. Ward is now 6-7-4 with a 3.85 goals against, 888 save percentage. I wouldn't put the blame on him for that loss, though, in the game against Boston. Islanders, I expect Leonard. He's 9-6-3 with a 2.14 goals against, 930 save percentage. Grice is 12-7-1, 2.62 goals against, 917 save percentage. Over their last 10. Chicago is actually 6-3-1. They lost their last game, as I said, and now is the chance for them to potentially pick up the momentum. However, their road record is 7-12-2. Their record against the East is 5-8-2. They're 9 points out of the playoffs. They're right at that borderline where beyond that, it's difficult to come back. On the Islanders side of things, they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. At home, they're 9-5-3 versus the West. They're 6-8. So they haven't played great against the West in comparison with how they've played against their own conference. But they come into tomorrow night 1 point out of the playoffs. As I said, they're a big part of that dogfight for those 2 wild card spots. Now that Pittsburgh's on this huge run and Pittsburgh's closer to the Capitals than they are to falling out of the playoffs, and they've actually jumped past Columbus. I'm sorry, Columbus. Now for the Islanders, it's a matter of trying to get one of those wild card spots, unless one of those teams in their division ahead of them cool off. But for right now, it doesn't look like that's likely. So yeah, I mean, for the Islanders, it's a test, and for the Hawks, a test as well, in that they have a decent record over their last 10, and they need to build on that. They need to continually build on that. Next up, Washington. The Capitals, who are barely holding on to that lead in the division, not because they're playing poorly, but because Pittsburgh's playing extremely well. And playing a lot. So while Washington is barely ahead of the teams behind them, they have games in hand. So this is one of those games they have in hand on Pittsburgh. They need to win this. And they're in against St. Louis, who are 15-8-4. And when you look at the 24-11-3 record of the Caps, you compare it with the Blues, this looks like it's probably a runaway victory. And the Blues, I don't doubt, are already calling around to try to rent guys out and figure out who they can ship out and who they're going to keep. I try not to report too much on all the rumors going around until we get closer to the trade deadline, because some of it's kind of crazy. And a lot of the names you hear out there aren't going to move. A lot of the time it's like that Canucks deal with Ottawa. Nobody talked about the Canucks trading Nelson, and suddenly he's traded. So a lot of deals are like that, where it's a guy you don't even think of. On the Capitals side of things, although it kind of felt like a dream for Canuck fans who've been advocating for that since last summer. Anyways, on the Capitals side of things, Ovechkin, 29 goals, 16 assists, leads the team in scoring. Backstrom, 10 goals, 34 assists. And since this isn't an all-star game, Ovechkin will be there tomorrow. Karlsson, 6 goals, 32 assists. Kuznetsov, 7 goals, 27 assists. Connolly, 8 goals, 14 assists. Vrana, 12 goals, 9 assists. Wilson, 11 goals, 8 assists. I have to mention Tom Wilson has 19 points in 19 games. Oshie, 11 goals, 5 assists. Eller, 5 goals, 11 assists. And Niskanen, 5 goals and 10 assists to round out the top 10 for the Washington Capitals. On the St. Louis side of things, Ryan O'Reilly, 15 goals, 20 assists. Perron, 13 goals, 12 assists. Braden Shen, 7 goals, 15 assists. Tarasenko, 11 goals, 11 assists. Bozak, 5 goals, 11 assists. Dunn, 3 goals, 13 assists. Steen, 6 goals, 9 assists. Schwartz, 3 goals, 11 assists. Robert Thomas on the board, 3 goals, 9 assists. And Pietrangelo, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points. And he is the number one name out there. I don't know if he leaves or what happens or what they get back, but that's the number one name out there, and everybody's trying to attach every team to it, and I don't know. I don't know how many are calling about him, and I honestly would be kind of cautious because his numbers have not been great this year. On the goaltending side of things, I expect Holtby. He's 15, 9, and 2, 2.84 goals against, 9.12 save percentage, but if they go with Copley, they're fine. Copley's 9, 2, and 1 with a 2.61 goals against, 9.14 save percentage. On the St. Louis side, Allen's going to be the guy, I would think. He's 13, 12, and 4, 3.07 goals against, 900 save percentage. Bennington still doesn't have a record. He has a 3.51 goals against and an 840 save percentage. So I would expect Allen to start. And I wonder if St. Louis is actively trying to get another backup or what they're doing. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Over the last 10, Washington's 8, 2, and 1. They lost their last game. On the road, they're 12, and 5, and 1. Versus the West, they're 8, 6, and 1, so they struggle more against the West than the East. They're first in the division. As I said, they're 1 point ahead of Pittsburgh. They have 2 games in hand. They're 2 points ahead of Columbus, and I think they have 1 game in hand against Columbus. Over their last 10, St. Louis is an uninspired 5 and 5 after losing their last 2. At home, they're 9, 11, and 2. Versus the East, they're 4 and 5. And I say uninspired because they're 11 points out of the playoffs. If St. Louis is going to make noise and get into some kind of contention, being 500 from here just doesn't work. Being 500 from here gets you to a 79-point season, and you're out of the playoffs by about 16, 17 points in all likelihood with the way that teams are going this year. So for the Caps, I could qualify this as a trap game. You'll notice I've been very, very careful about when I put up those Akbar magnets. I'm not putting up the Akbar magnet on this one either. I just don't get the feeling that St. Louis is going to come out and beat him. Last but not least, yes, finally we're at the end. Finally and last. Tampa Bay, 31, 7, and 2, and against the LA Kings, who are 16, 22, and 3. Tampa on pace for, the best season in hockey? And if they end up getting, say, 130 points, are we going to acknowledge that it's probably the best season a team has had because of the salary cap era? Do we make that a division point? Again, we'd have to see how they do in the second half, but it'll be very interesting to see how that conversation goes forward. Leading the way in scoring for Tampa is Kucherov with 19 goals, 46 assists. Of course, he leads the league with 65 points. Braden Point, 23 goals, 29 assists. Stamkos, 22 goals, 21 assists. Johnson, 18 goals, 12 assists. Yanni Gourde, 11 goals, 17 assists. Miller, 7 goals, 19 assists. Hedman. We've talked about guys who are not eligible, and what I mean by eligible is that they didn't get named to the All-Star team. They're also not on a list of guys you can vote for to put into the All-Star game. So Hedman can't make the All-Star game, and I think he belongs there. He's won the Norris Trophy, and he could end up winning it again this year. He usually has monster second halves, so don't count him out. 4 goals, 20 assists for him. McDonough, another one, not going to the All-Star game. 3 goals, 20 assists. Killorn, 10 goals, 12 assists, and Anthony Cirelli, 9 goals, 7 assists, rounds out the top 10. On the Kings side, it is a more sad scoring list. Number 1 is Kopitar with 26 points, 9 goals, 17 assists. He would be behind Gourde, Johnson, Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov on Tampa. Just pointing out he'd be the number 6 scorer in Tampa. Brown, 11 goals, 11 assists. Doughty, 3 goals, 19 assists. Iafallo, 9 goals, 12 assists. Carter, 7 goals, 11 assists. Kovalchuk, 7 goals, 10 assists. Muzzin, 4 goals, 12 assists. Kempe, 6 goals, 9 assists. And Martinez rounds it out with 3 goals and 8 assists for the LA Kings. So it's been a rough year for LA. And a team that has trouble scoring hosts a team that has no trouble scoring tomorrow night. But LA's goaltending's been pretty solid, so something's got to give here. I expect Vasilevsky in net for Tampa. He's 15-3-2 with a 2.58 goals against, 923 save percentage. That would make Demang the backup. He's 15-4 with a 2.99 goals against, 904 save percentage. On the LA side of things, I expect Jonathan Quick because Jack Campbell played the last game. Quick 6-9-2 now with a 2.87 goals against, 904 save percentage. Campbell's 5-8 with a 2.23 goals against and a 930 save percentage. And I should just have a moment of silence for Cal Peterson, who had a plus 500 record and is no longer one of the top 2 goaltenders. Okay. In the last 10, Tampa's 9-0-1. They've won 6 in a row. On the road, they're 14-3-2. And versus the West, they're 10-5-2. It wasn't that long ago, about a month ago, I was talking about how Tampa didn't have a great record against the West. Forget that. Tampa has a great record against everybody. And they're first in their division. They're 10 points ahead of Toronto. So it's obscene at this point how well Tampa's playing and how much better they're than everybody else. On the other side of things, LA's 5-3-2 in their last 10. They've lost their last game. At home, they're 9-11-1, and I've said before, being below 500 at home just doesn't get it done. Versus the East, they're 5-9-2, which is not a great record, and they're 10 points out of the playoffs. So LA's hopes of making the playoffs are still tenuous at best. A win over Tampa would be potentially big for the team's confidence, but again, you have so many teams you have to pass. You're 10 points back. It gets really, really difficult. Even with half of a season to go, the math starts to kind of not add up in your favor. But there you go. So you're all set for tomorrow's 8 games. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just tap it upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.